So Mitch runs Inyerface, which is a business consulting firm, and works with business owners globally, and especially focuses on helping with communication and persuasion marketing. Recently I got to this is a bit of turning the tables, because recently I was I was participating in Mitch's show off the cuff. So this is an opportunity for us to get a little off the cuff with Mitch and learn more about your business and what you do. So welcome, Mitch, and looking forward to our talk today.
Thanks for having me, Paul. Yeah, it's awesome to reciprocate the host session here. So notice that you did say that I'm a business consultant. I do dive into marketing quite a bit. The thing that I do the best is teach people on how to use persuasion and influence, which is communication, to get out there and basically break down or to identify the beliefs that your clients have and to speak to them in a way that will break down those beliefs so that they can see the potential in their business. It's all about getting them excited, you know?
Yeah, I know, that's excellent. And I think it's important to, because sometimes part of that is getting them excited about their business so that they can, enthusiastic to make some adjustments and implement some of the, changes that you're recommending.
Yeah, one of the things that I do differently, I find, is I like to have a lot of fun in business. And so you and I start working together, you're going to feel like you're working with a really, really close friend. And I find putting that aspect of fun and whatever, it breaks down that whole business barrier where when I entered the business world, I've always been an entrepreneur as a kid doing, I wouldn't count paper routes or anything like that. I never did those, but moving into like the professional world when I was, when I moved, when I started business in 98 or 99 or whatever, I don't even know when I started business. I know it's been almost 22 years now. And I thought business operated in a certain way, suit and tie, you go, and like it's very conservative. It's like very linear type of, like we do this and it's formal and it's stuffy, and that just didn't work for me. And I found that it didn't really work I guess it didn't work for me because my clients weren't really feeling it. They weren't, they're like, they could see that I wasn't being authentic, and things like that. So I bring in that element of fun. Why not, right? We have to have fun, but we have to be serious about business. And to me, delivering on the result is the most important thing to business, right? Is to making sure that you have exactly what you want and more.
It's really interesting you mentioned about suits and ties, and you think about, back like 100 years ago when ties actually had a purpose, right? There to keep your collar together. But, probably since we've have buttons on our shirts now, ties aren't really actually that necessary, but it's just been so part of our, history. And, it's like it's more of a decoration, right? That we wear. But, I've been enjoying not wearing my tie this last couple of weeks because, I'm not meeting any clients in my office anymore because of the current situation. So yeah, I must admit, like I like the feeling of freedom, not having something tight around your neck. But the whole thing is, it's kind of interesting. The whole idea of wearing ties and suits. You wear jackets, right? Because when you're outside, it's cold, so you would have a jacket on. But it's just like the whole suit and tie is more of a it goes back in our roots and our history, but it's, the question is like whether it's really necessary. And it's almost like, when you put your jacket and your tie, you're becoming, the business person, right? You're putting on your business hat, and, everyone's, you have a certain formality to that structure where, dressing more casual. Yeah. It's more of a relaxing type of conversation.
And on the flip side, I really like suits. Like I love how they look, and when I do go out and when I wear a suit, I don't own a black suit and I don't own a gray suit, right? It's one of those things. My shoes have flowers on them, and it's just, I like suits for that. I don't know if it's to make a statement, but it's to basically, it's what I like. I like the extravagance of of a suit. You could have it like prim and proper too, but it has to suit you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm going to use big names here, but if you were to think about Gary V wearing a suit, it's almost impossible to imagine because it's just not his personality. Same thing went with Mark Zuckerberg, right? He's always a t-shirt guy. And when he was before the Senate, he was wearing a suit and he actually looked a little bit kind of off in that suit. Steve Jobs, I don't know, I've seen him in the suit, but again, it just didn't suit him and it just became the turtleneck black shirt thing for him. It's got to, you have to be authentic in business. Like you can't be someone that you're not. And so be authentic, man. That's just something that we should all just be doing. And you know, there are a lot of people say, well, I am authentic, and you just get a vibe that they're not. And I mean, then again, perhaps it's not easy to get out of that mindset either, right? And I know that you speak about mindset quite a bit, but when we build these beliefs, we essentially build a box, and it's what we grew up with, experiences, right? We're told success is this, success is that. I don't know how you grew up. I grew up in, you know, success is having a nice job so that you can retire, then travel, and those were sort of the belief systems I grew up around. And other people, success might just be to have a full garden in the backyard. And so long as that is provided, that is, you know, success to them. And it all depends on how we were like raised, I guess, but it's not just our parents that send us, that give us the tools that we need from the ages of 1 through 8, 6 being, 5 and 6 being like a really prime age for learning. I'm no expert, so please don't quote me on this stuff. I'm just going approximately. Once we, you know, everybody's provided those beliefs, we live through them. They're anchors, right? They're the sort of the people have set their incomes with these belief systems. If you notice, most people don't make more or less than their parents did. Those that do have learned on how to get out of that box and how to communicate differently and how to actually be outside of the box themselves, right? So they break down their own beliefs before they can actually start doing that for other people. Now, I know it sounds very coachy and it's not what I do. I'm not that, but I mean, it's an element that I use because it's really important. It pieces together the entire puzzle at the end of the day. Business isn't it's not a game of tactic. It's not a game of, oh, I'm just going to throw ads online and get a bunch of business and I'll be set for life. It just does not work that way. You have to nurture all the time. You have to build the relationships so that they'll stay long-term and not just come to you for a quick little tactic and then go elsewhere. You want to build that trust, that long-term trust with a client. And with that, and I have clients that have been with me for the entire duration of my business career in IT, called whatever you want, web technology, 21, 22 years as a client. And because of that, I know that business inside and out. My staff knows that business inside and out. So if something comes down the road, like, you know, this sort of happened, that happened, or this isn't working, we know exactly what it is because we're very familiar with that account. And I'm sure that the same goes for you, Paul. I mean, you've worked with a client for a long time, so you know how they think and where they want to invest and what potential they have also, and what fears they have within them with investing. You know, what motivates them, so that you can really direct them in the right direction. The longer that you know them, the easier that becomes for you.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, you hit the nail on the head in terms of the importance of building a relationship, because that's really what you should be focusing on. You know, what is your dream job or your dream business? Wouldn't it be one where all your clients are your friends, right? Like where you people that you respect and you look forward to meeting with them.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I recently lost a client. He transferred out, and I was, you know, he was the one client that I really hated, you know, having to speak to, because he, you know, he was really kind of uptight, and he was, I just found it, you know, awkward conversations, and you know, so I was like, I'm kind of glad that, you know, he's gone, and you know, building a business with the people that you like to work with, and or have common, you know, interests, or you know, yet that you're on the same page. It's your dream, you know, because yeah, once you build you know, those relationships, those clients, they'll be clients for life, right? So when I was at the bank, you know, I had clients that you know, that came over with me when I started at a different firm, and you know, just because we had those solid, those foundation relationships. One thing I wanted to ask you about, Mitch, is you were talking about being authentic, and I want to kind of, you know, talk about where is that line, right? Because, you know, maybe that you might have some interests that are not maybe socially acceptable, right? You might have some weird kinky stuff that you're into, or maybe you're into, like, you know, really you know, heavy music, or, you know, really some stuff that, if it, you know, things that got out may not people might look at you. So where do you think the line is between, and also on top of that, I actually want to ask you about two things. What about your brand, right? So if you have, you know, you have your personal life, you know, like even you and I, like, we're musicians, you know, we have that aspect of our lives. We have our family life. Then you have your business. So you have almost like different brands for each of those, right? It's like, you know, you have your LinkedIn profile, and then you have your Facebook profile, right? One's is your business, one's your casual. So I was interested to, you know, to ask you about those two topics.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, the last thing you mentioned, I want to touch on, because those are called, you know, I studied NLP, which is the stuff that Tony Robbins speaks of all the times, sleight of mouth and chunking and stuff like that. But there's one thing that not many people talk about, and it's the circle dynamics. And circle dynamics are essentially those types of circles, and you have to sort of, you know, like the way that you and I are together is a circle. Right now we're having a relationship, we're having a discussion, it's our circle. And then when you bring another person in, you're bringing in another set of beliefs and another set of opinions and ideas and things like that. So that circle has to adjust. And a really good example of that, and it's something that probably a lot of people struggle with, but it's going home to family, it's going home to visit mom and dad. Even though everybody knows my age, I don't want to break it to you. I'm going to be 40. So, you know, a grown adult going to visit mom and dad falls back into a state of almost like childhood. So because the relationship there is parent to child. You know, right now we're comrades, so that is equal. But when we go back home, even as adults, it's really hard to sort of like mesh and be who we are authentically as an adult with our families. And it's not easy, but you have to just, and those circles happen too. I was gonna say you have to adapt. Those circles are also LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. The people who hang out on each one of those platforms are different people, or they'll send a different message. What I put on LinkedIn is way different than what I put on Facebook, which is hardly anything now. I just really want to use it to promote off the cuff and certain things. Like, I mean, it's kind of, my whole family's on there, right? So it's a really cool tool to stay in touch. And I get to see when you're posting videos. I get to see when other people are hosting a live, or so I like it for that. I don't know if you're following me on the circle dynamic, but these little circles, these little pockets, sometimes they also blend into each other. And it's just knowing how you are authentically and bringing that into that circle. It's difficult. I don't even know how to describe it.
But do you think you should lay all the cards on the table, or do you think you should keep some close to your chest and then and present the ones that that you want the public to see?
Well, I'm not sure if I understand the question correctly, but I know that for a fact that there's certain things that I just won't talk about with my family, just because it's over their heads. They just don't, they have no interest in it. And much of that has to do with business. Now they may ask, you know, how's business? They just have a common, you know, interest in finding out how well you're doing, you know, everything's good. But I'm not going to give them the breakdown. Like if I was having this conversation with them now, I would have lost them. They would have probably walked out of the video. So, understanding that and understanding that it's not part of the topic. I'm the one who has to sort of revert to the things that we used to talk about and used to do together when I do visit, which is nice in a way, because it's nice, but at the same time, I don't know, it's literally something that I'm obviously still working on, but and it's not a problem, by the way. I love going to visit my family and we have a great time. It's just, it's that dynamic. Like I feel it. Like it's almost like I pull back on everything that I've become when I go there. So I become more submissive. I become more sort of like, hi, mommy. I don't know. I don't say that, but you know what I mean? It's you sort of get back to the child state.
Yeah, no, I can totally relate, Mitch. It's the same, same situation. And, sometimes there's a reason why you maybe not live in the same city as your parents, because that sometimes that with your parents, see you as their child, right? And where you were dependent for so many years, they still see that you as that state, right? So they always want to give you their opinion and how you should do things, and exactly, like if you're talking about something that may not interest them, then you might lose their attention. But I feel the exact same thing with my parents as well, right? It's like that you just go to that, that dependent again, right? That state of mind. So and I know that for me, like I definitely, to grow, you always have to remove yourself from that situation, right? That's why, you don't want to stay at home your whole life. So,
Yeah, good point.
But I did want to talk about, so we're talking about, holding cards close to our chest, and this, conversation we were having this morning, because the reality of the situation right now, people are struggling right now with this pandemic, and mental health is becoming something that is sort of showing its ugly head right now. You're seeing, people getting really frustrated and ranting on social media. And I had a couple, like, conversations with entrepreneurs, and one of them was going through a really rough time, and you can just see it in people's faces right now. I was at a investor call too with even my firm, and just like everyone's, their facial expressions, as you can imagine in the investment industry right now. So you could just see people, like, just everyone's kind of down on themselves at this time. And I almost think, I'm very fortunate to be in an industry where we are an essential service, and and be in that situation. And I feel like you almost have an obligation to help uplift others, and to be an ear that they can speak to. And but I want to talk with you about mental health and those challenges with dealing with running your own business, especially in today's world where there's a lot of people out of business right now, or basically in pause for like 6 months. So want to see what your thoughts are on that.
Right. Yeah, definitely. That's a good thing to talk about. I will go day after day with a big smile on my face, and I have not changed one bit, and I'm still going to be wanting to talk to you and smile and joke around. But I do realize that there are people out there that are really struggling inside. Some of them it's visible, some of them it's really not. And some people do have that fear inside of them. They're going to lose their business, or they're going to, again, those are beliefs though. But I pulled up an article, Paul, and I was just connecting, so I didn't read it, but I took a screenshot because I want to get to it. The title says, a trauma psychologist weighs in on the risk of motivational pressure during quarantine. And she says there's motivational messages circulating during the lockdown. And the reason that this hit me is because I see this also. You've got a lot of people saying, if you don't, like, this is an example of somebody that posted on Twitter, if you don't come out of this quarantine with either A, a new skill, B, starting what you've been putting off, like a new business, or C, more knowledge, you didn't ever lack the time, you lack the discipline. And it's kind of like, is that really what you need right now? Is sort of like a guilt trip, you know, a guilt trip or a get out of the slumps. You know, it's really easy for anybody who's in a good position to say that, like, oh, come on, just, it's no big deal, just get out of your crazy slump and make it happen. Instead of sort of, you know, I think you interviewed Brian Tahana. Instead of like really being empathetic, right, and starting from there to help, instead of, I don't know, that stuff bugs me a little bit. Maybe my face shows a lot, but that may work for you. You know, it may energize you, and for others it may not. At the same time, social media is a tool that we use to express certain things. So you could choose to take it or leave it. How we interpret and how we consume content and how we analyze it and how we store it inside of us, that really is up to us. So you can ignore, you know, I've been, truthfully, I've been using the unfollow and follow button like you wouldn't believe in the last 3 weeks. Just because some people have really surprised me. People that, you know, I have a certain perception of them because of what the messages and the things that I've seen over the past years. And it's like they've become somebody completely different. And then you're like, is it the true colors coming out, or is it fear, or is it whatever? Now, I hold many beliefs. I hold so many beliefs in my business and in my personal life. This here, though, I'm still in the extrapolation stage. I'm a faceted thinker, explorer, if you will. So I like to get a lot of info, but I will not, I haven't landed on any type of opinion, and I don't think I want to. So there's so many what if scenarios. And I mean, you've probably seen this too, circulating around, like all these conspiracies are just coming out of the woodwork. And whether, you know, call them conspiracies, we all know that that word was made up back in something like the 60s or something like that. I think they're just, it's a what if scenario. It's kind of like, hey, you know, nobody knows anything about this, so let's create stories and explore truth and things like that. I find it fascinating, but I don't hold any beliefs on that.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting because, you know, with this isolation, people are kind of forced to evolve and take a break from what they were, you know, doing in their business, and now kind of look into themselves and you know, ask themselves, okay, well, is this a time of reflection, right? Do I really enjoy do I love what I'm doing? But it's also a test because, you know, this could happen again. This can go on for 6 months. And that was the theme of our e-conference, right? How to adapt and overcome this challenge for your business, because you basically have two choices, right? Do you curl up and ball and like, what was me? This, you know, this is terrible, and how could, you know, this is so unfair, you know, how could this happen? Or, you know, you take the hope perspective and, you know, how can I use this opportunity to grow myself and to improve my business, maybe explore other avenues for my business, maybe improve my social media, maybe write a book, right? You know, there's so many things that you can be doing right now. So just saying about the importance of using this as an opportunity. And I know it's tough right now. And, you know, and I come from the philosophy of like, if you're going through a tough time right now too, like, you know, I think the universe is telling you something that, you know, maybe it is, you need to do some, maybe that your approach, your strategy, maybe you were, you know, pissing people off. Maybe you were being too arrogant or something. Maybe, you know, just understand this as you're in development, right? It's a process, and you got to acknowledge that too. Like when those feelings, if you're feeling depressed or anxious, right? Acknowledge those feelings, take a deep breath, and you know, and then maybe talk to a close friend or something. But I think, you know, there's a lot of people going through a tough time, and I just, from my recent interactions, I've had even people canceling meetings, and you know, or like I'll have a meeting with someone and they were just like, you know, kind of like irritable throughout the whole meeting because they really didn't want to be there, and it's almost like they were meeting because they thought they were doing me a favor. So I ended up like asking them, maybe this isn't a good time. Maybe you need some time to to adjust, or or people even having they say I just had a breakdown, and it's tough to see though people going struggling right now. So I just try to be, provide some humor to people like on my Facebook, and to try to make people laugh, and try to, because I feel like I am very fortunate to be in a situation where I'm not as impacted. So,
Mm-hmm. You're
so
good to
yeah,
get
those are
enough
very,
with humor,
yeah.
but definitely, there, I okay, guilty. I almost canceled, right? As you know, because I wasn't feeling good. And it wasn't like I don't have the virus, I don't have the flu, I don't have anything like that. But these past 3 days, what are we, Wednesday? That's the thing, they flew by. I've just been like, I don't know what happened, but I'm just shutting down. I think my body was just like, take a break. Because I'm also fortunate. I've nothing slowed down, it's sped up. It's done the opposite for me during this time. So I think I just need to take a break and get out or do something like that. So I know I hate flaking out though. I was like, I'm gonna do it, and here I am. I hope it's going well.
Yeah, no, and I commend you on that, Mitch. And that's really what I hope that anyone who watches this takes away, is that it's so important to show up. And you may be going through a rough time. Like, number one, people don't even know, can't even read that half the time if you are. And if you do show up, and you may actually feel better, it may go a lot better than, because it's just all in your head, right? You get on that downward spiral, you're thinking, and I think it's common today because it's the whole, as a society as a whole, we are feeling like society is depressed right now, right? Because everyone's in isolation. You're not getting the same social exposure. We're basically, we're moving almost towards a police state in the way that, the restrictions are in place. So, it's understandable why everyone's going through a rough time. And you yourself, as an empathetic person, you're probably feeling that energy, right? And that's what I noticing a lot of people, even post today, friend Darpan was posting this morning. She's like sensing this energy right now where everyone's shutting down and really getting in the dumps. So that's what, I think you just have to acknowledge, what you're feeling, and understand it as a process. But I think it's so important, like, you got to show up, right? You got to keep going, because, you don't want to continue the ride down the downward spiral. At least, show up, because, people are, other people, and maybe depending on you, and to be there, and we're all in this together. So I think even if you are feeling, down the dumps, I think it's important that so I commend you on that, and persevering, and and coming, and I thought what you Mitch brought to the table about the whole creating a demand, and using your influence to create demand, I think was really insightful too, with like at our e-conference that we held. So yeah, definitely, props to you for, for showing up. And I know you're not an early person too. So
That's the thing though. See, you talk about showing up, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that, because the thing about showing up is a lot of times you're not going to want to, and it could be video, and it could be a fear. Some people are just, they have that belief that I'm not good on video. And then you look at them on video and you're like thinking to yourself, they're better than I am. So that's the belief they hold. Now, the thing with showing up, again, though, is motivation, right? You need to have that motivation. It's not time, but again, to that article. But anyway, you probably experienced this, where you just don't want to do that document. You don't want to fill it out. Like, I mean, that's the worst part of your job, right? Is like,
yeah,
you're done meeting with a client, you have to fill out this paperwork.
Yeah, it's like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's like, I just want to go home. And
but as soon as you do it, right?
Yeah.
Once you jump in it, you may not want to. You get into flow of it, and it just becomes, you're flowing. And so those 3 days that I had, I was like, I worked. I was just working, like I was reducing the load, if you will. And I was still getting stuff done, and I found that I would I would just get into the flow of things and things would pick up. And that's exactly what's happened this morning. And that's, I know I'm just, mornings to me, I'm like an old diesel truck, an old diesels. The thing is that once you start them, you got to let them warm up, right? And so that's me in the morning. But as soon as I jump on a call like this, I'm up, I'm awake. So, but again, that's like just a belief system that I need time to warm up the engine before going.
Yeah. So, and I'm kind of the opposite, because I'm like a morning person. So like I'm firing on all four cylinders, and at like 6 o'clock in the morning, that's when I'm most productive. But fast forward to like 8 or 9 o'clock at night, I start like watching TV or dozing off, and or your wife's having a conversation with you, and you're like, half of it is like but if you get that second window, and then it's like, I'm up till like midnight, right? So
Yeah.
so it's funny, we each have our own kind of nocturnal rhythms.
It's funny, yeah. I've received messages from you at 11:30, midnight, something like that. And I'm going, if a guy wakes up like at 4, how do you do it? But I get a second wind sometimes too. It could be 7 p.m. This rarely happens. I'm not a nap guy, but sometimes, it just catches up to you and you're sitting there at 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. And especially now that it's daylight out, I end up going, this happened this week. That's why it really rarely happens. So I just decided to lie down on the sofa and play with my dog a little bit, and my eyes shut for just a wee bit. Now it was about 7 p.m. and then by like 7:30, it's dark out. And I thought oh no, oh my God, I slept through everything, right? But then I get my second wind, and that 30-minute nap keeps me up till all hours of the night, which I get productive in the nighttime.
Well, they talked, in Spain, where they would have their afternoon siesta. What you do is you hold your, I learned this from a Spanish friend. You hold your car keys in your fingers, and as soon as you had your siesta, and then you drop your car keys, it wakes you up, and then you've had the sufficient siesta to get your second wind there.
Nice. You're like, oh, all right, I'm gone. Well, when I was in high school, I'd get home and I'd literally have a 10-minute nap, because it was one of those things where I lived out in the country. So the bus, by the time everybody was been home for an hour already, I was just getting home, type thing. And then dinner. So I only really had 10 minutes, and I would nap for 10 minutes. But man, that was enough to just get the juices going again. You don't need much time. You don't need to take a 3-hour nap if that's a thing. I don't know how we got into the nap talk, but.
Well, I was going to add to even getting some fresh air, getting outside. I mean, that can just changing things up, I think, is the main thing, right? You don't want to do the same thing for hours on end, right? Just as long as you change it up, that will rejuvenate, get some fresh air, maybe some exercise, make sure you eat right and everything, all that jazz, from sharing some best practices that we did in our Body, Mind, and Spirit from our e-conference. But anyway, Mitch, this has been fantastic chatting with you, and we're about the 45-minute mark. So I think we can wrap things up. But this has been great having a casual conversation, and I thought we talked about a lot of interesting subjects, and that people can take away.
Well, thanks for having me, Paul. Really appreciate it, and if people get something out of it, awesome.
Excellent.